All right, so power builders, power building. I'm not jumping into all that. I think enough points have been made on every which side, down the middle, etc., etc. Y'all can have that. Just I'm gonna say this because I noticed a trend being said, and probably a mistake if hypertrophy is truly your goal in context with power building, and that's the style you choose to train. I know basement bodybuilding mentioned it. I think it's been mentioned elsewhere. It gets mentioned a lot. The powerlifting part of power building tends to take over psychologically, because there is more of an instant gratification, and that's certainly a thing. But I think you can still have that without sacrificing form and range of motion. And this is something where my man Paris, Bald Omni Man, really excels at and thrives with his style of power building training. And I think if you are quote unquote looking to do power building with an emphasis on the hypertrophy aspect of it, it's something you should take heed of and take note of. And it's, if you're going to do these big three movements, and you can even substitute in, and I would recommend substituting in variations from time to time. I, even as primarily a power lifter, have done this in off seasons with great results. Obviously, you guys see them at the beginning of every video. Which one of your favorite noble natty bodybuilders has bigger, juicier pecs than me? None of them. And I say that endearingly. But if you're going to do, bench press, for example, get an arch, but you don't have to get as tight of an arch as possible. You don't have to get the most efficient movement pattern for moving the most maximal weight as possible. Get a small arch, safely set up so you're not killing your shoulders. But really focus on having a larger range of motion. Grip it a little bit closer. Uh, Bring it all the way down. Slowly control your eccentric. All right. Get that stretch at the bottom. Pause it for an honest 3 count before you start your push. Do it that way every time. You can still get stronger like that. You can add weight to your bench in that range of motion with that style. Don't compromise your form. Don't you don't get, oh well, I can get 20 pounds more if I arched a little bit higher, or if I paused a little bit less. Get that shit out of your head. Get stronger based on that same standard. That is your new standards. That's your quote unquote competition standard. Is that slow eccentric, that closer grip, that honest 3 count pause. That's your new standard, and get stronger like that. You can pursue that, and it's going to be is chasing 1 rep max strength in that aspect going to be the most optimal for hypertrophy? No, but you're not looking for the most optimal this or that. You're looking to blend the best you can these two overlapping aspects. So that's your standard. If you add 50 pounds to that standard 1 rep max over time, and to train for a 1 rep max, you don't just practice 1 rep maxes all the time. So get that out of your head too. It's not like you're just going to go in there and I'm going to hit 3 to 5 heavy singles and that's going to be my only training for that. No, you're going to do fives, eights, maybe tens within those same parameters with that standard of lift. And I'm just using bench press as an example there, but that's what you're going to do. And over time, you're going to accumulate volume. You are going to go near failure with some of these sets. You are going to get stronger by that standard. And as you do, you're going to grow and you're going to elicit hypertrophy and gains. And you're going to elicit better growth and more potential hypertrophy because you're not doing it in the powerlifting style. Even though you may be attacking this lift in a powerlifting style of training, you're still doing it to a different standard than powerlifting standard. So you're getting that more increased range of motion, a deeper stretch, all of that good stuff. And again, it's insert a squat. You're gonna stand with a little bit narrower with a high bar, and of course there's still better movements for your quads, okay, but you still want to pursue, a bigger squat, but instead of doing the traditional kind of wider stance, lower bar, much more hingy squat, you're going to do more of an Olympic looking squat to get more quads involved. And again, I'm gonna, name drop Paris again. He's got a really smart thing he does where he does leg presses before his squats, and I think he uses the safety squat bar a lot, which is another option. But he pre-fatigues his quads, so when he does go to squat, because I know he still enjoys doing these big compound movements and getting stronger at them. But when he does go to squat, his quads are pre-fatigued, so it makes it less of a your back's going to give out first, and kind of evens it up better to where your quads are going to get closer to failure with the squat itself. But again, it's something that with deadlifts, control your eccentrics. Use a conventional stance, sub in RDLs, use front squats instead of squats. There's a bunch of ways, doing a higher range of motion. And again, it depends upon what your specific goals are, but there's ways to take the powerlifting movements and do variations or make them harder, longer range of motion, etc., pausing them for longer, all these sorts of things. You just have to stick to that standard. Stick to that standard of what you self-impose on this to generate more hypertrophy, and bias that a little bit more than absolute moving the most weight possible, but still treat this longer range of motion more difficult range or more difficult way of doing it to involve more muscle activation. Treat it like a power lift without deviating from that standard. Train it like a power lift, and as you do, you're going to get stronger with it. Again, accumulate more volume, get more sets near failure, etc., etc. And that's going to be a way to bias the power building more towards the building side than the power side, if that's what you so choose to do. And I think that's what a lot of power builders really want to do. But again, Landon's video, he said it really well, that psychological aspect, and that's what I get that psychological fulfillment out of performance. But even still, I've used Larson presses with a buffalo bar. Again, my juicy titties. And you've got to treat that lift as its own thing, and keep it to that same standard. And for me, it was in off seasons. For you, it might be your primary way of training. But I think that's a way for, quote unquote power builders, again, to bias that builder side while still scratching the power itch, and still getting some of those psychological benefits and endorphin boost from seeing that instant gratification of weight going up. But again, to a standard that's different from quote unquote, well, not quote unquote, from powerlifting, and more just, make your own standard with these more difficult lifts, and reap the benefits in the building side more of power building. So that's what I wanted to say. Peace.